Welcome and thank you for viewing the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin's webinar on Advocacy in Action, How to Talk with Your Legislators. As you know, the League is active in responding to legislation on issues our members have studied and come to consensus on. But it's the grassroots advocacy of our members from all over the state that matters most to lawmakers. I'm Erin Grunze, Executive Director of the State League, and Andrea Kaminsky, Legislative Coordinator, will also be presenting today.
And this is Andrea. The League of Women Voters believes in representative government. It's one of the core principles upon which all of our other positions are based. And we believe that your representatives need to hear from you, even if you're pretty sure that they already agree or possibly disagree with your positions in general. While this webinar is focused on advocacy on state legislation, you can use the same principles for federal or local matters. If you know your representative is going to disagree with your stance, well, it's still important that they hear from you so they can't say that they haven't heard any objections. On the other hand, if they always vote the way you want them to, they still need to hear from you because it helps them to be able to say, I've heard from scores of my constituents saying they want me to support this bill. Lawmakers tend to be policy wonks, and some are very ideological. Your own personal story about how the law affects you, your family, or your business can either soften their support for a bad bill or strengthen their support for a good one. So let's start with where you get your information. Lots of places. Staying connected with the League of Women Voters is a great way to start. For information on the state legislative process, go to the Wisconsin Legislature website, where there is lots of citizen information. On the home page, scroll down to the More Information section, currently at the bottom of the right column. There you'll find how a bill becomes law, which offers a detailed explanation of the legislative process, including a flow chart and even a comic strip rendition that's actually pretty helpful. The full More Information menu is shown on the next slide. And here's what it looks like with a few particularly helpful resources highlighted. The Wisconsin Blue Book is an excellent overall reference about Wisconsin state government. The Citizen's Guide to the Legislature is a detailed document that's specifically about how the legislative branch works, how it's structured and how it works. The budget process is different from how other bills are introduced and passed, and so that is an interesting document as well. And then, as I mentioned before, there's how a bill becomes law. The legislative process, in general and in brief, goes like this. A bill can be introduced in either house where it's read by the chief clerk, and that's called the first reading. The bill is referred to a committee which studies the legislation and may hold a hearing. The committee may vote on the bill in executive session and then refer it to the Rules Committee, which may schedule the second reading and the floor debate. After the floor debate and possibly amendments, the bill is ready for what's called the third reading and a floor vote. And then it goes on to the other house of the legislature and eventually on to the governor to be signed into law. It's often not that simple, though. At any point in that process, a committee can decide to take no action. One house of the legislature might not bring the bill to the floor. The governor could veto all or part of the bill. And if that happens, the legislature can still override the governor's veto with a 2/3 vote in each house. And if the governor doesn't act on the bill, it can still become law by default. So every bill has its own path through the legislature. This is what a bill looks like. The first paragraph shows the date of introduction and the names of the sponsors in the legislature. The second paragraph shows a description of how the bill would fit into the statutes, and it ends with the what's called the relating clause. In this case, it says relating to expungement of records of certain crimes. The third paragraph is the analysis by the Legislative Reference Bureau. This is a plain English description of how the legislation would change current law. That Legislative Reference Bureau, or LRB analysis, is continued on page 2 of this bill. Sometimes it goes on for several pages. And it is followed by a line that says, the people of the state of Wisconsin represented in Senate and Assembly do and act as follows. And then you have the bill itself in legal language, and that has numbered lines, which is what they use when they're referring to parts of the bill or amending it. So now, how do you talk to your legislators about a bill? Well, first, know that it's fine to talk with the legislative staff. They are knowledgeable and they're key players, and the lawmakers themselves really rely on their staffers for information. Call ahead for a 15 to 20-minute meeting and tell the person that you reach what you wish to speak about in the meeting. If you have a specific bill number, that'll help, but it's not necessary. It may help to know that legislators tend to be at the state capitol Tuesday through Thursday and in district on other days. Even if your legislator is not available, their offices in the state capitol tend to be staffed business hours Monday through Friday except for holidays. To get the phone number, go to the Wisconsin Legislature website and click on the Senate or the Assembly, and you can get into all of their office phones.
Your representatives are accountable to you, their constituent. Your own personal story and appeal is worth more than a policy paper. The League has authorized spokespersons, and they are the only people who should speak for the League. Your role is to speak on your own behalf. After the meeting or phone call, let us know how it goes. Your input provides insight and is helpful strategically in the League's advocacy. You shouldn't assume your representative is in lockstep with her party. Sometimes lawmakers surprise us. After all, politicians are human beings. We have seen some of those who seem the most in line with their party actually break ranks because of their own personal experiences. For example, they may have a relative with a chronic mental illness or a child with special educational needs. A personal story from a constituent can help a lawmaker to understand something they otherwise could not imagine because they don't have a personal connection with the issue.
So when you have a meeting or a phone call, first thank your legislator or the staff person for their time and remind them of what you wish to discuss. Explain how the issue affects you or someone you know. Explain why you care. Be sure to tell them in so many words how you wish them to vote. And then express hope. Remember, always be respectful. An attack will be counterproductive. They will tell you how they stand on the issue in most cases, and again, that is information that is helpful for the State League office to know. So share that with us. And then thank them again. And follow up with a summary email to the legislator just saying that, thanking them again for meeting with you and saying again, expressing hope that they will vote the way you asked them to. By the way, you can use the same basic approach if you give public testimony or personal testimony at a public hearing for a bill. And speaking of a legislative hearing, well, that's another form of advocacy. Some others are write a letter or email to your legislator, write a letter to the editor, write an op-ed. That can be 500 to 700 words. If you're going to do that, talk to the editor first about what you plan to write about, and they'll give you some good tips. For all of these communications, be sure you keep it short and focused and punchy. Focus on one or at most 2 points. And ask a friend to read it before you go and testify or send it into the newspaper. That helps somebody who isn't so close to the issue read your words and know how they will come out. And you should know that emails, letters, testimony to legislators, those are all public documents. If you write something for the paper, that of course also becomes public. And but do send a copy to your own representative so they know that you're watching. Now, the biennial state budget has a somewhat different process. The Joint Finance Committee seeks citizen input from citizens in a series of public hearings that they hold in different locations around the state, usually in April of the odd-numbered year. The League's State Legislative Committee writes statements about budget matters as they relate to the League's positions, and our state office sends the statement and the hearing schedule to local leagues and makes the information available for league members and the public on its website. While there are designated spokespersons to speak on behalf of the league, all league members are encouraged to attend the joint finance hearings and speak on their own behalf as residents of Wisconsin. Now, here are some other ways to get information. You can get information from your representative's office. Ask to be placed on their email list. Then you know they will tell you what bills are coming up that they're interested in, and it's just a way to stay on top of things. You can read the league positions. They're very well written. They are very well thought out, and they're on the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin website. You can click on, you can go to the home page and then click on positions in the left-hand menu, and that'll take you to a page that will link you to the state positions as well as the national positions. You can subscribe to the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin emails and get information that way. And again, go to the LWVWI homepage for that. Go to the state legislature website. As I mentioned before, there's good citizen information there. There's also a League of Women Voters of Wisconsin webinar called How to Track Legislation that explains how to use the legislative notification service to keep track of bills in your interest area, and also the Eye on Lobbying website, which is it's something from the Wisconsin Ethics Commission that has good information on bills. The How to Track Legislation webinar is on YouTube, and it's linked from the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin website.
The League wants you to be informed, active, and engaged in your government. We also want to help. There's an email listed here and a phone number for the League state office in Madison. We'd like you to contact us with a question or let us know about your meetings with your legislators. Thank you for your attention and action. Have a great day.